Ladies and gentlemen, let's get real. Every single one of us has felt fear. Every one of us has doubted. Every one of us has stood at the edge of a cliff in our lives. Whether that's a relationship, a career decision, our health, or a dream we buried because it felt too big. But I want to tell you something today that most people forget. Fear is not your enemy. Comfort is. Because fear will at least make you feel alive. Fear is a signal. Fear tells you there's something worth fighting for on the other side. But comfort lulls you to sleep while your soul is screaming to be more, do more, and become more. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is deciding that what you want, who you want to become, what you were born for, is more important than the fear standing in front of you. Let me ask you something. What's one thing, just one thing, you know you need to do but you haven't? Maybe it's a conversation. Maybe it's a leap. Maybe it's quitting that job you hate. Maybe it's starting the business, writing the book, getting back in shape, telling someone you love them, or forgiving someone who hurt you. You know it. You feel it. And yet, something stops you. That something is the story you've been telling yourself. I'm not ready. I'm not enough. What if I fail? But let me tell you something that will change your life if you let it. The story you tell yourself will either cage you or set you free. If you want power, you want growth, you want freedom, it starts with a new decision. A decision backed by courage. Because courage is the moment you say, enough. I will no longer be of perfect conditions. I will no longer wait for perfect conditions. I choose to act. I choose to move forward. I choose to rise. The people we admire, the legends, the game changers, the ones who inspire us, they all felt fear. But they moved anyway. They felt doubt, but they took the next step. They were unsure, but they acted from courage, not comfort. Courage doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees growth. And growth is life. Courage is not a one-time event. It's a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to take the first bold step. The universe responds to movement. Destiny responds to decision. You weren't born to play small. You weren't born to tiptoe through life hoping to arrive safely at death. You were born to impact, to create, to rise. And it starts with courage. Right here, right now. So make a decision, a real one. What would your life look like if you stopped negotiating with fear and started living with courage? Stop waiting, stop wishing, be bold, be relentless, be courageous, because the life you want, the freedom you crave, the impact you were born to make, it's waiting on the other side of your courage. Let's go claim it. Fear gets a bad reputation. It's seen as the thing that holds us back, the villain in the story of our lives. But the truth is, fear isn't the real enemy. It's comfort. Comfort is the silent killer of dreams. Comfort whispers to you that it's okay to stay where you are. It tells you that tomorrow is a better time to start. It convinces you that playing small is safer, more manageable, and more predictable. But what comfort never tells you is that while you're safe, you're also stuck. While you're protected, you're not progressing. Fear, on the other hand, is a signal. It's energy. It's your body and your mind telling you that you're standing at the edge of growth, that there's something meaningful, something potentially life-changing just beyond where you are. And when you feel that fear, it's not a sign to retreat, it's a sign to lean in. Because fear only shows up when something important is at stake. You don't fear things that don't matter. Fear is there to sharpen you, to awaken you, to push you beyond the limits you've unconsciously accepted. But here's the trap. Most people mistake comfort for happiness. They think because they're not in pain, they're doing okay. They think because things are manageable, life is good. But there's a massive difference between being fine and being fulfilled. Being fine is the language of comfort. It's the language of people who've traded their potential for predictability. It's the story told by those who've accepted a life of settling instead of striving. And what makes it dangerous is that it doesn't feel like failure. It feels like maintenance. It feels like you're surviving. But survival isn't the goal. Aliveness is. People don't stay stuck because they're afraid. People stay stuck because they're addicted to certainty. Comfort gives you the illusion of control. It makes you believe you can avoid pain by avoiding change. But what you're really doing is building walls around your life. Walls that keep discomfort out, but also keep greatness out. And behind those walls, your dreams begin to shrink. Your energy begins to fade. Your spirit starts to dim. We live in a world that promotes comfort as the highest pursuit. Softer couches, faster deliveries, more convenience, less risk. But none of that builds character. None of that fuels transformation. Growth never happens in the comfort zone. Growth is born in resistance, in the fire of challenge, in the heat of doing things you don't feel ready for but commit to anyway. When you feel fear, you're actually feeling the call to expand. It's a sign that the next level of you is being activated. And if you run back to comfort every time you feel that signal, you're training yourself to retreat. You're teaching your brain that discomfort equals danger, when in fact discomfort is the birthplace of power. That unease in your chest, that lump in your throat, that pounding in your heart, those are not warnings. They're invitations. Invitations to level up, to break through, to do what you've never done so you can become what you've never been. Most people wait for the fear to go away before they move. But here's the truth. The fear doesn't go away first. You move first. You act first. And then the fear dissolves. Because fear is not permanent. Comfort is. Comfort is seductive. It's sticky. It's disguised as peace, but it robs you of progress. It steals your passion. It trades your future for familiarity. You can't grow and stay comfortable at the same time. You can't build a legacy by clinging to what's easy. And you can't become unstoppable by seeking shelter from the storm. The people who rise, the ones who break through, the ones who change the game, they feel fear, but they refuse to settle. They use fear as fuel. They know that the pain of discipline is far better than the pain of regret. And they understand that staying in comfort may feel safe today, but it will cost them tomorrow. Fear challenges you. It wakes you up. It asks you, what if you could do more? Comfort never asks that question. Comfort just wants you to stay the same. And staying the same never built greatness. Courage is one of the most misunderstood forces in human behavior. People often think that to be courageous, you have to be fearless. That somehow those who take bold action, who stand up, speak out, or risk everything are devoid of fear. But that's not reality. Real courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward in spite of it. It's standing in the middle of discomfort, doubt, and uncertainty and saying, I'm doing this anyway. That fear is natural. It's human. It's part of our biology. It was designed to protect us from danger, to keep us alive. But in today's world, it often stops us from living fully. When we wait for fear to disappear before we take action, we put our dreams on hold indefinitely. Because fear never truly goes away, it just changes shape. First, it's fear of failure. Then it becomes fear of judgment. Then it becomes fear of judgment. Later, it morphs into fear of success, of responsibility, of what others will expect from us if we win. If you're waiting for the fear to vanish, you'll wait forever. Courage is the recognition that fear will ride in the car with you, but it doesn't get to drive. It doesn't get to hold the wheel. You acknowledge its presence, but you don't surrender to it. You move anyway. Courage is a choice. It's not a feeling that magically appears when conditions are right. It's a commitment to act even when everything inside you is telling you to run. It's looking fear in the face and walking straight into it, because what's on the other side matters more than the comfort of staying put. People often think that the brave don't feel what they feel. That someone who launches a business, leaves a toxic relationship, steps into the spotlight, or chases a dream, has some kind of secret immunity to fear. That's not the case. What they have is a habit of acting in the presence of fear, not waiting for it to disappear. Think about any breakthrough you've ever had, any defining moment in your life. You were probably nervous. You probably had that tight feeling in your stomach, your hands sweating, your mind racing with what ifs, but you did it anyway. That was courage. That's where growth comes from. Not from knowing it will work, but from being willing to act when you don't know. Because there's no guarantee, there's no certainty, and there never will be. You're either waiting or you're moving. That's the decision point. Every time you act in spite of fear, you rewire your brain. You build a pattern that says, I am the kind of person who does hard things. You gain evidence that you can handle discomfort. And with that evidence, the fear gets quieter. Not because it leaves, but because you stop giving it so much power. When you allow fear to dictate your decisions, you slowly surrender your potential. You give up what could be because of what might go wrong. And the truth is, most of what we fear never even happens. The danger is rarely real, it's imagined, but the regret of not acting, that's real, that sticks, that follows you. Courage doesn't always look like a dramatic leap. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's getting out of bed when you feel defeated. Sometimes it's making a call you've been putting off for weeks. Sometimes it's telling the truth when lying would be easier. It's not always loud, but it's always powerful. It moves you forward. And forward is where the magic happens. People talk about confidence like it's the key to everything, but confidence is the reward. It's the byproduct. Courage comes first. Courage is what you lean on when you don't know how it's going to go. When you have no certainty, no safety net, no guarantee. But understand that whether it's wisdom or courage, doesn't. It's always with you. No form is better than the other. When you have no certainty, no safety net, no guarantee, it's the voice inside you that says, do it anyway. And every time you listen to that voice, you strengthen it. It becomes louder than the doubt, louder than the fear, louder than the excuses. You don't need to eliminate fear to be courageous. You just need to choose your focus. Focus on the mission, the vision, the goal, whatever's bigger than the fear. Because courage always comes from clarity. When you're clear on what matters, fear loses its grip. It may still be there, but it can't stop you. It's when you let fear become the loudest voice in the room that it starts to take control. But when you decide that fear doesn't get the final say, everything changes. Because courage is not some rare quality that only the elite possess. It's a decision available to everyone in every moment. The story you tell yourself is the foundation of everything in your life. It's not your past, not your resources, not your intelligence, and not your circumstances that determine your outcomes. It's the internal narrative you repeat, consciously or unconsciously, every single day. That story becomes your identity. It becomes your filter for what's possible and what's not. It becomes the lens through which you see the world, and more importantly, the lens through which you see yourself. Most people live in a story that was written for them, not by them. It's made of inherited beliefs, past experiences, old wounds, and the opinions of others. And because they never question it, they live trapped inside of it. This internal story can either be a cage or a key. It can keep you stuck or it can set you free. When your story is filled with limitation, you live limited. If your story is, I always mess things up, then you will find ways to sabotage your progress, even if opportunities are in front of you. If your story is, I'm not good enough, you'll filter out compliments, downplay your success, and doubt your every move. If your story is, I'm just not that type of person, you'll never give yourself permission to change. The narrative becomes your reality, not because it's true, but because you keep reinforcing it through repetition and behavior. And until that story changes, your results won't either. But here's the truth. Your story is not fixed. It's not permanent. It's a script, and you're the author. You can rewrite it at any moment. But first you have to become aware of what it is. Most people never slow down long enough to question the story they're living by. They say things like, that's just who I am, or it's always been this way. And they don't realize they're not describing reality. They're repeating a script that was installed years ago, often during childhood. The story you inherited doesn't have to be the story you live. Rewriting the story begins with deciding what kind of person you want to be. Identity is the strongest force in human behavior. You will fight to stay consistent with who you believe you are, even when it works against you. If your identity is, I'm shy, you'll avoid speaking up. If your identity is, I always quit when it gets hard, then every challenge becomes an exit sign. But if you shift your identity to, I do hard things, then every challenge becomes a proving ground. And if your identity becomes, I keep my word to myself, then discipline and integrity become natural. You don't need more motivation. You need a better story. Your story drives your standards. It shapes what you tolerate, what you pursue, and what you believe you deserve. If your story is, I'm not worthy of love, you'll settle for toxic relationships. If your story is, success is for other people, you'll never take the bold leap required to achieve it. You'll sabotage the very things you want because deep down, you don't believe they're meant for you. But when your story shifts to, I am powerful, I am resourceful, I create my own outcomes, suddenly new behaviors become possible. You stop playing small, you stop making excuses, you start aligning your actions with the future, not the past. Changing the story requires evidence. You don't just affirm a new belief. You go out and build proof of it. Proof of it through consistent action. Each time you follow through, each time you face fear, each time you keep a promise to yourself, you create a new page in your story. The old narrative starts to fade because it no longer fits the person you're becoming. You start to trust yourself more. You start to believe that you can change because you see yourself changing in real time. Most people want to change their lives, but they never change their story. They upgrade their goals without upgrading their identity. They chase new outcomes while living inside old patterns. But real transformation begins with the internal shift. It begins with asking, what story am I telling myself about who I am? And then deciding deliberately to write a new one. A story where you're not the victim, you're the creator. A story where you're not broken, you're becoming. A story where fear doesn't stop you, it fuels you. A story that reflects your power, not your past. Because the quality of your life is a direct reflection of the quality of the story you believe. Courage isn't something you're born with in massive supply. It's not a talent reserved for the extraordinary or a gift handed out at birth. Courage is a muscle. It's something that must be developed, stretched, tested, and trained like any other part of your body or mind. Just like you wouldn't expect to walk into a gym and bench press twice your body weight without ever having lifted before, you can't expect to act with bold, unshakable courage without building it through repeated action. It grows every time you do something uncomfortable, every time you face something you would normally avoid, every time you lean into what scares you instead of backing away. The problem is, people wait until they feel ready before they act. They wait until they have no fear. No hesitation, no doubt, but that moment rarely comes. Because the mind is wired for safety, not growth. The default setting is survival, not significance. So if you don't intentionally build courage, you'll naturally drift back into comfort. You'll shrink instead of stretch. You'll rationalize instead of rise. But if you train courage like a muscle, if you deliberately seek out small discomforts and push past them daily, something powerful happens. Your threshold for fear expands. Your tolerance for pressure increases. What used to paralyze you starts to feel normal. Courage training doesn't require huge leaps every day. It starts small. It starts with showing up when you want to hide. It starts with telling the truth when it would be easier to lie. It starts with finishing what you start even when no one's watching. These small acts of courage might not make headlines, but they compound. Every time you do something that scares you a little, you send a message to yourself that you can be trusted, that you can face pressure and still perform, that you can be counted on in the moments that matter. This self-trust is the foundation of true confidence. Not the kind that's loud and flashy, but the kind that's deep and steady. Most people think they lack confidence, but what they really lack is reps. They lack exposure to challenge. They lack consistent action under pressure. Confidence is not a cause, it's a consequence. And the cause is courage. When you make courage a habit, confidence becomes the byproduct. That's why courageous people often look fearless from the outside, but the truth is they've just developed the ability to feel fear and still act. They've built the muscle. And just like a muscle, if you don't use it, it starts to atrophy. Avoid enough challenges and your courage starts to weaken. Give in to comfort too many times and your tolerance for risk begins to shrink. You don't build courage when everything is going your way. You build it when you're in the middle of chaos, when things are uncertain, when the outcome is unclear, and you move forward anyway. You build it when you show up on the days you don't want to. When you hold the line when it would be easier to let go. When you do what's right instead of what's easy. Every one of those moments is a rep. And just like training in the gym, the reps don't feel good while you're doing them. They're uncomfortable, they push you, but that discomfort is the very thing that builds your strength. Courage becomes a part of your identity when you consistently act in alignment with it. It stops being something you do occasionally and becomes something you are. You start to see yourself differently. You begin to identify as the kind of person who faces challenges instead of avoiding them, as someone who can handle the heat, someone who takes the shot. This identity shift is everything, because when courage becomes part of who you are, you no longer have to psych yourself up every time. It becomes natural, it becomes normal, it becomes automatic. There is no shortcut to courage. No hack, no secret formula. It's built one decision at a time. One uncomfortable conversation at a time. One act of integrity at a time. The people who seem brave aren't braver than you, they've just done more rips. They've taken more risks. They've failed and come back. They've leaned into fear enough times that it no longer dictates their direction. And you can do the same. You can start with what's in front of you, with what you've been avoiding, with what makes you nervous but also excited. Because courage isn't about eliminating fear, it's about expanding your capacity to act in spite of it. And the only way to expand that capacity is through repetition, through commitment, through consistent, intentional action. The life you want is not sitting within the boundaries of what's familiar. It's not tucked inside your comfort zone or waiting in the safety of routine. The life you want, the one filled with purpose, passion, meaning, and impact, lives on the other side of courage. It lives beyond the fears, the doubts, the what-ifs, and the excuses. It demands more than wishful thinking and half-hearted effort. It demands a decision, a line drawn in the sand where you choose to stop negotiating with your potential. It requires you to lean into the discomfort, to do the things that make your voice shake and your heart pound, to take action when it would be easier to delay or distract yourself. Most people never get the life they want because they're waiting for the perfect conditions. They tell themselves they'll go after the dream when they feel more confident, when they have more money, when the timing is better, when the fear goes away. But the truth is, those conditions never come. The timing is never perfect. Fear doesn't disappear just because you wait. It actually gets louder the longer you stay still. Courage isn't the result of the right moment. It's the cause of it. You don't get the breakthrough first and then feel brave. You act with courage first, and that's what creates the breakthrough. Everything you want requires a step through uncertainty. That next level in your career, that deep connection in your relationships, that impact you want to make, they all live on the other side of discomfort. They require you to bet on yourself, to move without a guarantee, to trust your capacity to figure it out as you go. There's no script for your greatest life. There's only a path that's revealed through bold decision, through moments where you step up when you could have stepped back. The moment you act with courage, even in a small way, something shifts inside you. You feel alive again. Because courage activates a part of you that's been asleep. It reconnects you to your power, to your instincts, to your drive. It reminds you of what you're capable of. And it creates momentum. Because once you realize you can move through fear, you begin to trust yourself. And that self-trust is the fuel for everything. When you know that you can face what scares you, you become unstoppable. Not because things get easier, but because you get stronger. Avoiding fear doesn't protect your life, it pauses it. It places your goals in a holding pattern. You end up building a life around the avoidance of discomfort rather than the pursuit of purpose. You stay busy, but not fulfilled. You achieve things, but they don't satisfy you. Deep down, you know there's more. You feel the gap between who you are and who you could be. And that gap can only be closed with courage. Not with more information, not with more waiting, only with action. Bold, imperfect, courageous action. The future you want isn't waiting for you to be perfect. It's waiting for you to be brave, to say yes before you're ready, to show up when you don't have all the answers, to take the risk that might not work out, but just might change everything. The biggest leaps often start as whispers. A quiet thought, a tug in your heart, a flash of a dream. And if you ignore it long enough, it fades. But if you listen, if you follow it, it becomes the path to your next chapter. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to be willing to take the next step. That one conversation you've been putting off, that one opportunity you've been scared to go after, that one decision that you know in your gut you need to make. Courage isn't about waiting until you're fearless. It's about making moves in spite of fear. It's about trusting that the future version of you is worth the discomfort it takes to get there. Every breakthrough begins with a bold moment, a choice, a declaration. It starts when you stop asking for permission and start owning your power. It starts when you stop living by default and start creating on purpose. And that moment is available to you at any time. It doesn't require talent or luck. It only requires a willingness to act, to bet on yourself, to do the thing even when your hands are shaking. Because that's where life opens up. That's where fulfillment lives. That's where transformation happens.